The Republican triumph in this election goes way beyond Donald Trump. CBS News estimates Republicans will take control of the Senate. They also have a good chance of keeping control of the House. If that happens, what would the Trump agenda look like? We have Robert Costa and Ed O'Keefe, who have been working around the clock, and we truly do appreciate you guys. Good morning again, I should say. Bob, I'll start with you. What's the latest report from the Trump campaign?
Great to be with you. Inside the Trump campaign today in Florida, there is a lot of celebration and planning. There is already discussion about how this Trump transition will look and who would staff this new administration at the White House and who would fill the key cabinet slots. There's a lot of jubilation that Republicans, because they have Senate control of the White House, potential control of the House, will be able to enact possibly a very ambitious agenda. They're going over plans for the mass deportation proposal by former President Trump to go after undocumented migrants in this country. There's a push already to extend the Trump tax cuts from 2017. And you see the business community behind the scenes this morning rallying around Trump for the most part, believing that he is going to deregulate many of the industries in this country.
You know, it's interesting because he has said that he's going to free some people convicted for their roles on January 6th and fire special counsel Jack Smith within seconds of taking office. Would any of those moves surprise you? And I asked this, Bob, and Ed, too, because when I was in Pennsylvania talking to voters, people would say, oh, that's just Trump being Trump. You can't always believe everything he says. Sometimes he just says things, but it doesn't mean he's going to do that. What do you all think?
I would think those are two things he's going to do, at least firing Jack Smith for sure. The Justice Department's in for an overhaul. And we're going to probably see mass resignations of career attorneys who don't necessarily want to be there for it. Not only there, but across the federal government. So that's one thing. The January 6th, defendants, we'll have to see exactly how that would be done. I'm more curious to see what he does in economic policy. You got a big tax debate coming next year. Do you extend the Trump tax cuts for the wealthy? Can he make good on the campaign promise to end taxation of tips? That's what may have won him Nevada. It was such a popular issue that Kamala Harris had to go and adopt it herself. We went and talked to voters out there who now expect him to do this for them. Bartenders who make $100,000 a year in tips in a good year want those $30,000 that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten, but they want to know, well, how would that be reported if I need to go buy a house or I need to buy a car? And that would cost $250 billion over the next decade. Is that something that Republicans are willing to take on? So a lot of these campaign promises sounded great. And may have been, fuel for the base, but the details of them could get tricky. And as they say, you govern in poetry, or you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. The prose could get really tricky.
Well, the question, of course, becomes, as you both stated, who will fill those key cabinet roles? You're talking about folks like RFK Jr., who is potentially going to be in charge of some kind of health apparatus in the United States. Of course, the question becomes, what does happen to those institutions, the Department of Education, the Justice Department, if Donald Trump is able to implement the type of people that will look very different from the first administration. The first administration had a lot of professional class people with extensive experience in those roles. It might look different this time around, Bob.
If you're just waking up and you see Donald Trump is now going to be president of the United States again, the former president to be the 47th president, you have to conceptualize a different kind of presidency on the horizon. Former President Trump, based on our reporting at CBS News, believes that because the Supreme Court in recent months ruled that presidents have immunity, broadly speaking, when it comes to so-called official acts, that if he wins the White House, as CBS News has projected, he would be an empowered president, in his view, to have a tight grip over the executive branch in this country, to staff it with loyalists, whether it's the Justice Department, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission. All of these agencies could have his people. And there's a new movement around Trump. Donald Trump Jr., Tucker Carlson, J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect, Elon Musk, one of the world's richest people, all around Trump trying to overhaul the United States government. The United States, the American people, have just elected someone who wants to transform the country and has a full confidence in his ability to command a political movement to keep himself afloat, even if he has his critics in the Congress, in the press or elsewhere.
And Ed, do you think he'll be able to do that? Because what Bob is laying out sounds like a Trump presidency, since we know he's not going to run again, a Trump presidency with no guardrails on any level.
Constitutionally, he can't run again, but what's to say he's not going to try?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the fears that some supporters may have, is that he may try to find some kind of a way. Well, not supporters, critics may fear. But he has said this was his last campaign and this is the last time he's running. We'll see. Can I say one thing? I know there are a lot of people waking up this morning thrilled about this, and there are a lot of people waking up this morning confused and really hurt about this. And I'm reminded of a guy named John I met in Wisconsin, from Appleton, Wisconsin, who said he was supporting the vice president and he was praying for her to win. But, he said, if she doesn't win, life goes on and we have to move on and we can try again. And I think it's an important thing for all Americans, whether you won last night, whether you lost, you've got to be able as a country to move forward. And you can remember that in 2 years and in 4 years, there are contests again where your side might be able to prevail.
And just briefly, to Ed's point, the key things to watch today: what does President Biden say? What does Vice President Harris say?
Something we will be watching. Indeed. Bob, thank you very much. Ed, always great to have you. Thank you both very much. We'll be right back.